Well,
Exciting.
Kaiser Johnson joins us via Skype right now from California. He's going to be talking about his book. And as Bonnie said, she doesn't particularly like the beginning of the name of it.
Right.
How to be miserable and alone. But it sounds dismal. But thanks for joining us, Kaiser. Appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. I'm not miserable about it at all. It's great.
And speaking of Friday the 13th, I found out earlier speaking to Kaiser, he's in Arizona.
Oh, my
so,
gosh.
wow. We've just got it all going on with Friday the 13th.
He just made that trip while we were waiting. Well, let's start off with the book, if you could, Kaiser. Tell us about, actually, maybe we can start off from the end. And the epilogue of the book divulges the real title. So maybe if you could tell our viewers about that.
Yeah, the end of the book, so each chapter is basically, starts out with sort of a wisdom of the world kind of both title and then quote from a source of worldly wisdom, and then follows it up with the real title and wisdom of the saints and of the church and that kind of thing. But yeah, the epilogue is just live in the joy and the love of Christ, and that's kind of the goal of the whole book is and life in general, right? Is that I think it's in Deuteronomy that God says, I have put before you life and death, choose life, and that we're called to live life and with joy and to live it to the full, and that hopefully through hearing a lot of the terrible mistakes I've made and the bad advice that I've taken throughout my life, hopefully you can do better than me and make that choice the first time out instead of having to make the mistake too.
That sounds like a plan, but it is true that when people hear the word miserable or misery, the phrase that comes to mind is misery enjoys company. And your previous book, True Grit, addressed physical activity. Is that one of the components on how to avoid being miserable and alone?
Well, So Grit and Glory. I talked about the spiritual physical connection and how we're really shouldn't. It's a false separation if we talk about body and soul, and as though they're two separate things, that they're really God created us as incarnate spirits, and so there's certainly there are a couple chapters in here that deal with that a lot, like when it comes to what we do with our bodies, and in so many areas we even again the most secular among us generally still are willing to acknowledge that things that we do with our bodies reflect in our minds and that kind of thing, the brain-body connection. But there are a couple of big glaring areas where, secular culture just won't acknowledge that is true. And that's particularly, has to do with the realm of sex and marriage and gender identity and that kind of thing, where it's like everywhere else we buy into the idea that what I do with my body affects my mind and vice versa. And somehow we just throw that out the window when it comes to dealing with the most intimate parts of our lives and of our souls and of who we are.
We first started talking to you several years ago, I believe, when you first produced the Young Catholic Minute. And now you're married, a dad, and a working actor too. And maybe you could tell us some of the projects you've been involved with.
Sure. So, a lot of Catholic audiences may know me, from Unplanned, which came out a couple of years ago here, and that was a really powerful project to get to be a part of, and to feel the need to do, and that what it ended up coming down to for me was there was I know I had a lot of fear around doing that and about how it would affect my career and that kind of thing, but just coming to the point where it was like I just need to do this, but I've also been on Stranger Things, and I do a lot of voiceover, and so I'm in video games like Call of Duty and Resident Evil, and then I'm in some TV shows like Transformers on Netflix, and then upcoming projects which. Unfortunately, most of the time I'm not allowed to talk about them until they're like, they're coming out tomorrow. But another video game coming out around Christmas time, and some other shows and stuff like that as well. So
that's great. That's it.
But the best way to keep up on all of that is either just to go to my website, Kaiser-Johnson.com, and you can subscribe to my newsletter there, or just follow me on social media, and I'm posting about it generally when something comes out, and you can find out about that.
That sounds good. You've just a great body of work. Your performance in Unplanned was really great, but of course, Stranger Things, my kids all watched that, and they enjoyed it, so you must have done a great job. But the book is great. I love the line where you quote the Ted Danson character about why do human beings take something so great and take something a little way of it and ruin it? And so some of the things you've, brought up here in our conversation today just really kind of show that, we've got to keep ourselves on course to not be miserable and alone. So thanks so much. And I encourage everybody to check out the book and visit Kaiser-Johnson.com. Thanks so much for being with us today.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me, Bonnie.
Thanks. Take care.